Vanessa. Hi there. Welcome to Dying to Live.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. And I thought we could kick off just by my acknowledging the space that I'm in because it's tantamount to our conversation with what you do. And so basically, I have rescheduled us like a handful of times, and you've been so patient with me doing that. And part of the reason is trying to juggle parenthood, but also corporate life and entrepreneurial life as well, which is kind of what you help people do is figure all of that out. So thank you for your patience. And I'd love for you just to tell everybody a little bit about your backstory and what it is that you do.
Yes, and happy to be patient because I understand. I do. Yes. So what I do is, hi everyone, for those listening. I am an international business consultant, speaker, and best-selling author, and my focus is working with mid to late corporate professionals and helping them to grow their business while doing their day job. So while they are employed, so that they can then calmly and confidently transition into full-time entrepreneurship. So my journey is I started my business while doing my six-figure salary day job at a multi-billion-dollar company out in California. I've since left that day job, but essentially I took that path myself, and I guide my clients through taking that path of making their business happen, having something happening by the time that they decide to quit their job and really go full time in their business as an entrepreneur. And the key sort of parts in my sort of differentiator and what I do with my clients is really working with their lives. And so helping them to make that business happen around their existing life versus the other way around. A lot of people do, where it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna stay up until 2 a.m. and then go to sleep for like 2 hours and wake up at 4. Da, 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 da. And unless you have a newborn, there's no reason why you should be losing sleep, making your business and life happen. So I really guide my clients through really setting up that right strategy and having that right strategy and the pieces and processes in place so they can be set up for success in making their business and vision and mission happen.
Oh my gosh. I love what you said about calmly and confidently. Because I feel neither of those things in this process for myself. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, how you do this and, without, of course, giving anything away, but what's an approach that you take that's really helpful for people? Because this is really daunting trying to figure out how to hold space for both things.
That is a great question. First, I want to commend you on your vulnerability and admitting that you're not doing it all perfectly. A lot of people don't do that. I like to say, yeah, for me, it's like I work with a lot of high achieving, ambitious people. And that first step is essentially admitting that they need help, right? Like they need to like just admit they need help. And then before they can even accept it. And so I always tell people, you know what, I'm just here. I'm just out here. They'll find me when they need to find me. And there it is. But yeah, but I will commend you on your vulnerability. But in terms of, there are many different ways that I help my clients. I would say it really just depends on like what space you're in or what's really happening when it comes to time, called time strategy, and productivity breakthroughs for my clients. But yeah, but I'll do like a time audit session with my
Ooh.
clients, and that they always find it to be like no matter what stage of life, even full-time entrepreneurs too, like this is not just a people who are, I remember even when I was had my day job in my business, it was like, man, at some point I remember telling myself, funny, I quit my job, I have so much more time, like, right. And then I had to like correct myself like 2 seconds later. But essentially it's, even full-time entrepreneurs would come to me while I had my day job in my business saying, how are you doing this content? How are you putting stuff out there? I don't get it. And so just for anyone listening here, full-time entrepreneurs also have the same issue when it comes to their time. But when it comes to time strategy, what I help my clients do, the ones who are doing the day job in the business and the motherhood or the fatherhood all at the same time, it's helping them first. I always say, what are your non-negotiables? And so what is that thing that needs to happen for you to feel good about yourself, just no matter what, right? And so for some of my clients, it might be meditating in the morning. For some, I know, Kristen, you were just talking about how you were going on vacation for the first time in a couple of years this weekend. But for
Yep.
some of my clients, it might be going on vacation every quarter. So, but essentially, it's like ensuring that you set that up in terms of what is it that you need and making sure that you find the time to make that happen, right? I have one client, for example, she's been working on a nonprofit organization for the past 4 years, but she's also a director at a school district as well in California. And so
Mm.
she's making her high six-figure salary, getting demands from everywhere, but at the same time working on this nonprofit organization. But she also is like an academia PhD type of person. So she loves
Mm.
writing and like getting ideas out there to help towards her mission. And one of her things that she wasn't having happen was the writing piece of it and just like what that connection to her creativity and that artistry of her life. And so the first thing, like when I asked her, was what are your non-negotiables in life? It was like the writing. She's like, well, it hasn't happened though, but in theory, I would be writing and reading my favorite books, but it hasn't really happened. And so then I was like, no, we're gonna make it happen, right? And so for my clients is really like, what is that non-negotiable? And then when I'm helping them go through that productivity breakthrough and setting up their calendar and for the week and for the quarter and for their goals, that is always the first thing that we plug into the calendar, right? And so it's, maybe you had the 9 to 5 job that gets closed off, but then after that 9 to 5, it's sort of like, when can those non-negotiables happen in your week, quarter, whatever it may be? And maybe it's doing your nails every day. Maybe it's that date night with the husband every Friday night, or maybe it's, ensuring that you're home with the kids at 6 p.m. every single day. But what are those non-negotiables that need to happen for you to feel good about yourself, right? And for the parents, it's not necessarily what, my kid got an A, I feel good about myself. No, it's what you needs to happen for you in your life for you to feel good about yourself, not what needs to happen for everyone else. For you to feel good, but ensuring that you find that happiness within yourself and within your soul.
Ooh, I love that. I'm a big fan too of, outlining your hell yeses and your F nos. And this is, along the same lines. And the visual I was getting as you were talking is, how sometimes through your bank or through like a financial app, you can have the app give you like a pie chart of where all your spending is going.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, it tends to be really eye-opening because you think that you're, spending on X, Y, or Z, but you're really spending on like Cheez-Its and books and something else totally random. And I bet when people do this process with you, just like you were saying with the writing, maybe what they thought was going to be a non-negotiable actually ends up off the list and something else comes on the list. And so I bet it's hugely helpful for people to prioritize in that way.
It is indeed. Yeah. And I know one client where we did it with her and she was just like so struck by it that she was like, oh my God, I need to gift this to a friend. And so she she was like essentially set up a whole invoice for her to like pay for a session for her friend to go through this like time audit productivity breakthrough session for her busy friend as well too, to go through the process. But it can be eye-opening to go through this time audit and really just seeing, what is possible and what you didn't think was possible, but also just seeing what was happening in general and just being aware of it as well too. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what a great friend that is. I would love a friend like that. Sounds awesome. I'm really interested in kind of what took you away from corporate life, because there's a lot of benefits and there's some challenges as well. But it can be really hard to step away from something where there's a structure and there's some security attached to it. And so I'm really interested in your experience with that.
That's a great question, Kristen. Let me tell you, girl, So in summary, what I will say is, it was really just, in summary, it was listening to the universe at different pieces of and components of my life. But in summary, or a little bit more detail, what I'll say is, I've been working since the age of 13, more so in the nonprofit education, art type of spaces. When I entered corporate America, it was out of university and I thought I had made it. I was like, oh my God, look at me making 2.5 times salary my mother ever making her life. Like, I've made it. I'm in San Francisco, boop, 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 boop. Okay. So then what happened 3 months into that, I literally had a panic attack. Never had a panic attack prior in my life. The only reason I knew it was a panic attack because I had other people who mentioned and described these things. And I was like, oh, I think that's what it was. But really, essentially what happened was I was dreaming. And at some point in time, when you realize you're like sleeping. And so you kind of have to you kind of are in that waking up phase. And I remember getting to that phase and I just didn't want to wake up. I was like, no. I was just like, don't wake me up. I want to stay in this dream. Like, this is not real life. Like, no. And I just didn't want to wake up. And I remember just at some point, it was like 4:30 a.m. In San Francisco. And I had texted someone at work, one of the older managers, and just oh my God, just, it was a whole situation. But point being, that was 3 months in. I did not leave corporate then though. No. I stayed because I said, okay, you know what? It's a chess game. That's what it is. I just need to rethink how to think about it. That's all. Right. So I think, yeah, exactly. Right. I think a lot of us go through this, there are things that happen within the corporate space and it's kind of just okay, this just, there's a different solution for it rather than leaving. Right. So you just try to adjust, etc. And what happened was that was sign number one, but I didn't really listen to that sign. I was like, okay, I'm just going to adjust. I'm going to do chess. Okay, cool. And then what happens, I was in consulting at the time. And I worked on 8 different projects of many different companies, many different team leads. But with that being said, with different projects came different teams, with different teams came different team leads, which in the regular space called bosses in a sense. And so with that being said, it was definitely a lot of just leadership that I saw And at some point in time, years prior, I had been so obsessed with leadership. I was like, I'd read up books and I was like, what do I want to be as a leader? Da, da, da. And I also would then like practice leadership in different extracurricular activities that I'd be doing. And so when I entered this corporate space, I'm like, there are people who have been promoted and they're leading. I don't understand how or why, but I'm being miserable and I don't understand. But anyways, yeah. And then, but the thing is, but here's the thing. The worst part is then you speak to your peers and your colleagues and your coworkers, and they're also miserable. So it's not you. It's literally like, it's not you, right? And so then from that point on, I then decide, okay, maybe it's not corporate America, maybe it's the company. So I switched companies. I was like, oh my God, this is a great company. I'm in this new company, amazing space, amazing culture. But then I have another bad boss. And he was bad in that he wasn't a good leader, but he also didn't want to become a better leader. So it was like someone who just wasn't meant to lead. And then at some point I was like, okay, there's something that's off here. I don't know what else is possible though. At the time, me and my experience with entrepreneurship was literally just hearing the word in Silicon Valley and just being like, okay, like those people with Teslas, like do entrepreneurship. Like it wasn't anything that I thought was a possibility. So for me, it was like, okay, nonprofit, for profit, maybe we can go back to the whole idea of becoming a doctor. Like those were sort of like the things that I had in my mind. Then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's when I then was I learned, and that entrepreneurship is accessible. And this country runs on entrepreneurship. And for me, for me, it was like, oh, a regular person owns a laundromat down the street. Like I didn't realize that was a thing. And so for me, that was my eye-opening experience. And reading that book just showed me the possibilities of what was possible. And I said, okay, entrepreneurship, that's the route for me. Okay, cool, bad, great. So then a couple months later, I woke up with the idea Your Vision's Catalyst, which is named my consulting company, through which I guide my clients through, having that calm and confident transition into full-time entrepreneurship. And yeah, the rest is history from there. I mean, I literally woke up in a trance. It was a 3-hour trance on a Sunday morning while I was in Oakland at the time, not in San Francisco anymore. I moved to Oakland. And because I was like, maybe a change of environment. It was the whole situation. But yeah, I moved to Oakland, and at the time it was Sunday morning. I woke up with the idea. Woke up in like this trance. I was like, oh my God, yes, like this is what I need to do. This is what I meant to do. Blah, 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 blah. And it was all situation. But yeah, the rest is history. But essentially, and I made that, but I still at the time was still in that employer-employee mindset. And so there's that point in time when you have that business, you're doing the business while doing your day job, but you're still tied to the goals that you have with corporate America. You're still kind of tied to the corporate ladder. And like, even though you also have this other thing that you're doing, because as you mentioned, Kristen, it is that, security, safety, benefits, whatever it may be. I made the mental shift, so to speak, the full mental shift that I was not going to stay in corporate America long term. And before I made the physical shift. So the mental shift, that happened when it was sort of like, for me, my goal had always been to, once I entered like the for-profit stage, my goal had been to, okay, I'm gonna be CEO of Fortune 500 company. And then at some point I was like, you know what, maybe it's gonna be I'll be CEO of my own Fortune 500 company. And then at some point I was like, maybe this is the company. But anyways, yeah. So at some point it was just one of those things where I then stepped into that mental shift of this is not going to be long-term for me. And I could make it long-term because I was getting promoted. Like I was a great employee. That's the thing. I think a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, they'll be like, I just wasn't meant to work for anyone. I just want to be my own boss. And for me, it's like, no, I'm a great employee. I just don't have great bosses for some reason, but I'm a great employee. And so I'm a phenomenal employee. And so the fact of the matter is that it just wasn't for me to shine. The space just wasn't the space for me to shine. And this corporate politics just wasn't the space for me to shine. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna create my own culture, my own company culture that I seek to find, and what I was looking to find, at least when I was in that realm and chapter of my life. And so, yeah, that's long story short. I then eventually made the physical shift, but it was definitely, that was my journey, so to speak, in summary.
Yeah, that mental shift is super important, because until you get there, it all seems impossible and daunting. And then we get kind of paralyzed by the things that are difficult. And it sounds like Rich Dad Poor Dad is an amazing book. And it sounds like, you got permission. You were able to find permission from others, like in the way that they had done things. Cause sometimes we need our eyes open, whether it's through a book like that or through somebody else's experience, to understand, oh, like I can do this different. This might be the prescription that was written for somebody else, but this is how I can do it. And I can actually create this for myself, even if there's no roadmap for it yet.
Indeed. That is true. That is true. And I think that for me, and because I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family, it was just, I was like, oh, okay. Like I had nurses in my family. Even the entering for-profit in corporate America was like a new thing that I had to navigate. But yeah, but it was definitely for me, that book came at a time when my mind was already open to there must be something else. I don't know what else. And then voila, the
Yeah.
book came along. And so yeah, I think that was definitely one of those moments. But that was one of those moments where I listened to the universe. I think a lot of people, they have those moments. Like I'll hear, I've heard the past couple of years, it's like people say, oh yeah, I remember I read that book 10 years ago. Then I read it again 5 years ago. And that's when I decided to take action. Right. And the thing is that book probably came to you 10 years ago for a reason. You just didn't listen to it. Right. And so it's thinking about what are those things that are that are feeding your instinct and your mind that's already telling you what you need to do, and being
Yep.
ready to then take that step and take that leap is definitely a difficult thing. Right. But there's definitely a ways for you to do it calmly and confidently so that you can make a gradual shift. Right. And I think about it in terms of I'm grateful for like when I eventually then put in my notice, I gave in a 1 month notice and they wanted me to extend. And I was like, no, we're going to transition in 4 weeks. The end. But I remember I gave in that notice and it was so smooth. It was just like, I gave him the notice. I was like, time for me to go, looked at my watch, like whatever, time to go. Versus if I had done it probably like a year prior when I was like mad at my old boss and just like,
Right.
oh my, I went to the HR office multiple times. Like, I don't understand, if I had done it at that point in time, then it would have been definitely more of a sort of stressful life being dictated by someone else
Yep.
decision
Yep.
versus a no, this is what is meant for me. I know this. I'm confident and calm in this making this leap and this jump because I know what this is going to mean for me and so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah. And you got to guide yourself through that calmly and confidently because you weren't hung up on the emotion of, the situation itself,
Yeah.
which is awesome. And the thing that I hear coming through from you consistently in this conversation is intuition. So doing practices that get you more familiar with your intuition if you're not, closer to hearing that super subtle voice, and so that you don't get to the point where you're having a panic attack on a Sunday morning, right? And you're hearing it before that point, and then taking action. And then also boundaries. So what you said about, I gave my notice and I said it was this date, and not deviating from that because you feel obligated or because you get scared in the process, and really then moving forward in the direction that you've planned for yourself.
Indeed, indeed. And boundaries is also really important when it comes to even just that first question we had talked about earlier in this interview about like time strategy.
Mm,
And boundaries is a big part of what a lot of my clients fail on. And it's because they are the high achieving ambitious person. So they tend to be that person that everyone comes to for, different things. And so but like getting them to be in a space where they can set the boundaries, but also knowing what the boundaries are, right? Sometimes it's like you can't set the boundaries if you don't even know what the boundaries are. And so part of that productivity breakthrough and time audit is giving them that space and showing them what those boundaries are and getting them comfortable and confident in aligning with those boundaries and informing everyone else what those boundaries are as well too. And for me, I know a big boundary, for example, even when I was working my day job in business, was I decided, you know what? This is actually before I even started to even do my business. It was a couple months prior where I said, you know what, 4:30 p.m. shuttle, I'm out of this door. I'm on that
mm,
4:30 p.m. shuttle, and they will not see me. My laptop will stay at my desk, and that is what I did. And I still managed to get a really high bonus when no one else got bonuses. Still managed to get promoted. Still managed to get the 6-figure salary, and even with that, right? And so it's a matter of really understanding what are your boundaries and what are you, even like when you're doing a business as well too, just what are those boundaries that you're willing to, that you want to say yes to and set them and adhere to them and make sure everyone else knows that you're adhering to them, and then just like going forth and prospering in that.
yeah, I love it. Sounds like your process is so complete. You've thought of everything that we could possibly use to sabotage ourselves in moving forward in the direction that we want to go, and you have a tool for that, which is awesome. So I'm in a really unique position where I love my corporate job. I'm actually really empowered in it, and feel like making a difference every day and all of that good stuff. And I have this other stuff that I do, podcast included, that I'm really passionate about, that has equal meaning for me. And so I'm just wondering what your perspective is on that. And, eventually, sure, like I don't want to work in corporate America forever, but I'm really happy right now, and don't foresee that changing. So, do you also work with folks who are in that kind of a situation and maybe aren't looking to exit, but looking to figure out how to hold space for both things?
Yes, absolutely. I believe in multiple income streams. And so the fact of the matter is also, I believe in multiple income streams and I believe in happiness, right? And so if you're at a space where you do feel happy and comfortable in your job, by all means. And for me, in my sense, I was doing like, technically I'm still, what my business is consulting and strategy, which is what I was already doing for my, for my corporate job.
Yeah.
And so I love the work I was doing, just didn't have the right bosses and leaders. But with that being said, in terms of working with my clients, yeah, sometimes I do work with clients who do have either multiple businesses or they are in a space where they don't want to necessarily leave their day job, or at least if they were to leave, they're like maybe another 3 years, maybe, right? But it's not like they're not necessarily trying to leave tomorrow. It's just a matter of they are trying to make though this other thing, this other passion, this other sort of fulfillment and mission driven thing that they're working on also be a success too, as best as possible. And I would say that when it comes down to it, you don't need 40 plus 60 plus hours for your business to work on your business every single week for it to grow. Like that's actually not necessary. And so what I always tell people when they come to me, like someone the other day I was connecting with and at a marketing conference, entrepreneurship conference in Florida. And she was saying, I just want to quit my job because I feel like if I just had more time, like things would just happen. I literally just met this person like 5 minutes prior and I was like, okay, I wouldn't be a good consultant or coach if I didn't tell you this, but I'm just let you know, okay, time is not your issue. It's how you're doing what it is that you're doing that we need to fix. And I just set it down right there. But essentially, it's, for anyone like listening to this who is also probably in the same situation, you don't need to necessarily, it's not necessarily one or the other. You can have both. It's now we got to figure out and navigate how do you have both, right? And there's a way to make that happen. Because at the end of the day, when you think about even when you make your podcast a success, right? At some point, you may decide to expand the podcast and do some other product or service. But are you going to stop the podcast and do that product service? No, right? You will have probably multiple things running at the same time. And so just for you, it's starting for today versus like sooner rather than later. Right. And so there definitely are ways for you to make it happen. And it goes back to even more of that time stuff, but also just fixing how it is that you're doing stuff. And so if you're doing business in general, all businesses at the core is marketing and sales. Right. Yeah. And so it's really looking at how are you being more efficient and effective in your marketing and in your sales process when you're thinking about getting people from stranger to like buyer. I was going to say stranger is danger, but no, from stranger to like buyer or listener in this case, or sponsor, whatever it may be that you're looking to get people towards that end state, and making that an efficient process that works within whatever your time frame is. And so like, for example, some of my clients, they only have 5 hours a week to work on their business. Some have 20 hours a week. Some of them are full time and they have 40 plus hours a week. And so the fact is you can make a business work in any amount of time during the week. It's just a matter of, instead of, jogging and racing and sweating and going nowhere, is how do you jog and sweat and race and actually go from mile to mile to mile till you get to the finish line.
Oh my gosh. I love this because I've never heard it shaped up that way where, let's say I have 10 hours a week and then how we work together is you help me figure out how to be the most effective and efficient within that 10 hours to get my business to the place that I want it to be. It sounds so simple and a little bit of a duh concept, but I've never heard it shaped up that way.
And that's where I come in. That is my mission, to help shape it that way. Yes, exactly. Yes. Exactly.
I love it. So, okay, great. I'm going to really think on that. I need that help. How do you know when it's time to leave? Like the corporate gig?
That is the instinct thing, I would say. And so, well, let me say, because we have some listeners that are the more analytical listeners, probably, who are like, give me some numbers. I need a system. I need a check mark. Right. And you have other people who are not that. For people who are not that, the answer is you'll know when you know. You'll just know when you know. Whether or not you listen to when you know is a whole nother story. But you'll know when it's time to go. You'll just know it, right? You'll just feel it. It's going to feel scary. It's going to feel like the worst thing possible, but you'll just know. For everyone else who's more of the analytical numbers people, the guideline that the mark that I try to tell people is, it's like looking at, if you only had 10 hours a week that you've been working on your business and you managed to make maybe $5,000 a month, right? But your salary for your day job, maybe your goal is to replace your salary for your day job, but your salary for your day job is $10,000 a month, perhaps. But if you could do $5,000 a month with 10 hours a week, think about what you can do if you had more hours in a week, right? Now, obviously, this is just assuming time and money is equal, which is not. But right now, we're in the beginning stages here. And so we're just going to go with that mindset and thought ideology. Because in theory, it's like, if you can make $5,000 in 10 hours, you can make $10,000 in 10 hours as well, too. But for the purposes of, if you're still in that stage where you're thinking about, okay, just like the math there, if you can make 5K in 10 hours, you might be ready to expand and make even more with even more hours that you have during the week when it comes to leaving your day job. But for everyone else, trust the instinct. You'll know. You just know.
Yeah.
You'll just know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I left the company where I'm currently at for a short stint, and basically it was a whole different situation then, but I left work on a Friday and I just thought, if I have to go back in on Monday, it's killing my soul. I'm just I'm not going to do this. And so I walked in on Monday and gave my notice and didn't really have a plan, but I'm entrepreneurial and things worked out and I gained clients and I proceeded. And then the opposite can be true too, where, this current company, something else presented itself. And I love the company and I love the work that was done. I just didn't love the situation that I was in previously. And so they offered me to come back and I was like, yes, absolutely. And I went back and I think that can be interesting for people too, because there's a certain amount of ego tied up in that kind of a shift either way. And so to be able to also make the opposite decision for yourself based on that gut instinct, it all comes down to that for me.
It does. And that's also brave of you to make the decision to go back. It is an ego thing sometimes too. Like the ego and pride in me. It's like, do I go back? But I had just left. OMG.
I know I made this statement and now I'm going to turn, go the other way. Whatever. It's, if there's one thing for us here in this life, it's the ability to shape it exactly, how we want it to be in many regards and having the courage to do that. So I totally applaud you for helping people figure out what that journey looks like for themselves. And if they're the analytical person, if they're the gut driven person, if they're the person that wants to stay or go, you're able to help them put some, framework around that.
Yeah. Structure and intention and strategy.
Yeah.
Or clarity, definition, direction. That's the 3 words. But yes.
Clarity, definition, and direction. Okay. I love it. So what, one priceless tip do you want to leave people with today?
That is such a great question.
It's a small question.
Yes, we talked through so much. One priceless tip is time management does not exist. You cannot manage time. Ooh. You only have 24 hours in a day. You always have 24 hours a day. You cannot pause it, rewind it, or play it. But only thing you can manage is yourself.
Mm-hmm. And you help people figure out exactly what that means for themselves. I love it. Thank you so much for being here and sharing a little bit about what you do. I'm personally really intrigued by the tools and the resources that you have for folks. And I would love for you to tell people where they can find you.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I love this. I always love speaking and teaching. But essentially you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm technically on Instagram, but that's not my main platform. Talk about that maybe another episode. But I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, Vanessa Zamy. Very easy to find. And feel free to DM me or message me. Feel free to say, hey, I heard you on Dying to Live podcast with Kristen. I'm like, hey, what's up? And always happy to connect with people. I also offer 20 minutes sort of underwhelm or overwhelm business sessions, complimentary sessions. So you're welcome to schedule time and let's figure out what's happening with you and see how to get you unstuck in the best next path forward.
Oh, I love it. We'll put all of this in the show notes too, so people can just click through easily to all of your spots. So thank you. Thank you for sharing some insights, and everybody go check out Vanessa.